Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor. I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today, originally I was thinking, oh well, I could maybe do a Conan video, but I'm still kind of waiting for the next perk update, considering that they put out that trailer for the last one, which showed off the fact that the flexibility stuff in the armor was actually to do with climbing, as I thought it was. So that's a non-issue, which I can talk about in the next video with the other update when it comes out at some point soon. I thought, oh well, there are other games that I could take a look at and stuff like that. And I was like, oh well, I picked up a couple from the winter sale on Steam and stuff like that, so I could go and take a look at that. I could go and take a look at a game that we've not played in a while, like State of Decay. I could maybe take another look at the Overwatch Christmas stuff before it all finishes and ends for another year. But the thing is, then the other day, this turned up, and as I've told you guys before, as we've been through before, Paladins was the hero shooter that had kind of dragged me towards it because it was a fairly open experience, but also had a level of depth and complexity that allowed me to buy into it quite well. It wasn't just an Overwatch where everyone's the same and it gets a bit dull. It wasn't a Team Fortress 2 where some of the things are very hard to come across and somewhat unusual when you first get into a match, because some of the weapons and things that people have changed the way that they play rather drastically. But then you've got and then you had Battleborn, which kind of came in, and I was hoping to be more PvE, and it kind of had a interesting campaign, but it just wasn't enough. And so now you get into Paladins, and they seem to be trying for PvE. They seem to be trying for this kind of deep system that you could get into that was still accessible. And so, I was kind of getting into that. But then, obviously, we've seen them get Hi-Rez get greedier and greedier. We've seen a turnaround in the number in which staff are working on the game, and that seems to have changed the direction. We've seen a complete balance breakdown in regards to new characters introduced, the way they work, old characters not being updated or repaired, bugs running through the whole game, and them seemingly going unnoticed because the next new thing is more fun. This thing that seems to be happening with a lot of developers at the moment who are kind of just grabbing for money. They want the next big thing because it's the next big thing that they can firstly enjoy making, and secondly that they can shout loudly about, rather than going back and presenting the best service, best quality that they can. We've seen these guys, in spite of the uproar around Star Wars Battlefront 2, these guys still basically did the same thing by making the progression system for skill usage and things like that with the Cards Unbound update basically pay to win in the same way that it had been otherwise. The VIP system coming in as a greedier version of the already existing store with a subscription model basically attached to it. There were lots of things that were a problem, and now we've seen this battle royale kind of gameplay style pick up and go. Lots of people who are into PvP have enjoyed the large scale combat that other games that in this space have provided. Prominently PUBG to begin with, where it's had a kind of up and down kind of time, where originally it was very much a more indie title to one extent or another, and even though it's still progressing and building and they're still adding things to the game and all the rest of it, you had kind of a bit of a breakdown where there were lots of bugs and lots of problems with their Xbox One release, and so that's kind of tainted some of the reputation of the game as a whole. But then you had Fortnite, which Epic. I got a couple of issues with Fortnite because they came out initially going, this is Fortnite, this group tower defense game, and in the next year we're probably going to make it free to play. If you're buying in on the founders packs now, then you're buying in early just to play the game for 6 months, a year, whatever it was, so that you can kind of go places. Then they added the Battle Royale and they made that free to play. And they've added a money-based progression system where you buy into it to get more faster, which is a pay to skip. That's fine. That doesn't bother me too much. But the main campaign, the thing that was there to draw people to the game in the first place, the thing that they got the money from founder packs and all that kind of thing, has basically been transformed from a founders pack into just buy the campaign for the full price, and that bugs me about Fortnite. It looks like a good game. It looks like it'd be fun, but if you're going to have this big shift just because you feel you can add this new game mode that you can make more money out of, that is a very kind of underhanded form of greedy, which I'm not a big fan of. And in fact, I think I'd probably say that that's worse in various ways than being just straightforward and greedy, as Hi-Rez have been with Paladins, or how EA are just generally. Because at least when you know they're going to be greedy and it's upfront and it's fucking obvious, then you can just go, okay, well, you're going to be greedy assholes and I'm not even going to bother. But when it's kind of underhand and kind of, oh, well, we're only going to do it like this, so we've not really gone free to play, only on this one game mode, and then all those people who bought founder packs, we're not disrespecting them. We're just changing the fact that they got this extra added bonus that they paid for, and now we're just going to shift it around, and the same people that come in now can get all the same stuff as they did to one degree or another just by buying. That seems a bit of an odd shift. The same way that Battleborn did, where they went, oh, well, we're now going free to play, but you buy the campaign. And the people that bought the full game because they wanted to support it and they thought it looked good, we're going to give them less than £10 worth of in-game currency or store currency and a crappy title. It's like, no, that's not on. It's not fair. It's disrespectful to the players that actually bought in on your game to begin with, and it's shitty. And so now I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, couple of different things. Firstly, Paladins initially, and when it first got announced and first started showing off its stuff, even before Overwatch became Overwatch, as much as people will cry that Paladins was an Overwatch clone, it started off as being these forts in this open battlefield, and you would have teams of heroes, and they would clash. And the idea was to take the forts, or to, with the siege mode, drive your siege engine, the little cart that we know from the current siege mode, across the map through the different forts to take the forts. Fairly straightforward. It's similar on to what we already have, but on a grander scale. Yeah, so instead of having 2 points where you capture the siege cart and then move it to the other end of the map, it would be you capture your one at your fort, and then that's your first fort, and then you can move it all the way through 2 other forts or whatever it was, where you would jump onto your horse and off your horse, and you'd move around to tackle the enemy team and to deal with it that way. To me, that's fine. That sounded just reasonable. It's you have the same kind of scale of maps with multiple points in things like TF2, and to a lesser degree in Overwatch as well, where you've got maybe 1 or 2, possibly 3 distinct points on a map to kind of move through or between. For instance, the Junkertown map has the initial capture point, then the gate, and then moving through into then the second gate, in fact, and then moving into the kind of win zone. So you've got those different kind of control points. But now we've got these guys jumping on the bandwagon with this Battlegrounds mode, which is a battle royale mode, and it's not even as if they could, they could have called it anything fucking else, but in this case, it is a literal lift from what's already going on. And I've had conversations myself with people around this kind of game mode, this kind of game, and I've gone, yeah, do you know what would be really cool if you had, like, Fortnite, for instance, in the main game, you have the 4 kind of player classes, essentially, each with a slight difference. Not huge, but slots. You know, they have elements of what they can do compared to others, or what access they have to certain gear and things like that. Now, the gear restrictions, fair enough, maybe not a thing that you'd be looking at, but in regards to having like teams of 4 in the battle royale mode, where you can compose a team build based on different classes with slightly different traits, that doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. That sounds kind of fun. But a pure battle royale mode where it's everyone against everyone, free for all, with loot pickups and with all this other stuff that we've seen from the 2 other biggest kind of games in this sphere at the moment, which are PUBG and Fortnite, and maybe something like H1Z1 and stuff like that as well. But you know, you're looking at those games and you're going, okay, well, how does this work when the loot that you're picking up is probably going to just be the item cards that you purchase at the beginning of a map, at the beginning of a match. Your weapons and your abilities are already set. Are you going to be picking up cards as you go along to equip and modify your loadout as you go? Are you going to have any access to your builds, or is it all going to be like that? You know, there's a lot left open with this at the moment, considering it's only just been announced. But the issue that I have with it is, again, the game's broken. The balance between characters is already very poor. They've announced a new hero at the same time as they announced this, which is a little goblin-looking thing that looks like a Final Fantasy character, seemingly not really fitting a lot of the aesthetic in the rest of this game that they've already established, that rides around on a 2-headed turtle. We don't know what role it will play. We don't know what else it will do. All we know is that it seems that this character, from the little teaser, is some kind of arcanist, yeah, and has some kind of defensive ability, and has the ability to turn people into food for its 2-headed turtle thing. And again, doesn't seem to fit. If it's a crowd control-y character, then fine, but where is it going to fit? You know, in regards to the other characters that we've already got, and the fact that you've got this new mode, firstly, I don't feel we've got enough different characters for this kind of mode, because I feel like you either need to have an awfully large number of characters available for this kind of mode to work effectively, so that people have decent amounts of choice and an even keel between damage, defense, support characters that can all roll together, either against each other or in teams. Because at the moment, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking no one's going to play support. No one plays support anyway, but support isn't really going to have a huge role in this. You know, there are going to be a couple of characters, maybe Maldamba, Grover maybe, because he can continually regen, as well as having that ability to snipe with his axes, because he's got his damage increase over range. But someone like Ying, not going to be functional. Someone like Ceres, not going to be functional. You know, the amount of spread that Ceres could put down with her orbs, fine, she could potentially stun some people, she could potentially cause some damage, surprise people, but a lot of her efficacy focuses around healing another target. So if this is a pure free-for-all, she won't be seen at all. You know, and they're suggesting, from the trailer, it suggested you'd have 100 people coming in and competing in this way. And, you know, again, I feel like it's going to be all flanks, all damage. Even the tanks, I don't think, just due to their size, their slow nature, I don't think we're going to see many of those. Even Terminus, who is horribly broken in the main game due to the way that he works and due to the fact that no one else really has any defense against him. You know, his close quarters style of play is just not going to be seen here, which means that the problem that we've already had with Paladins, where you've got damage characters and more damage characters, instead of as I've talked about in other videos, a kind of damage, tank, support, and then jack of all trades role, you've got these two damage focused, where one's slightly squishier but more mobile, and one is less squishy but kind of potentially a heavier hitter, but less mobile. And so it's going to be, I feel, a case of us seeing either people sneaking up on each other and wiping each other out that way, so Sky or characters like Androxus that can get the drop on people, or we're going to be seeing a shift towards individuals who are focused on characters like Strix, for instance, or Canessa, where they can sit somewhere across the map and tag people. Strix especially, considering that he's going to be able to stealth as well and get out of dodge if needs be, reposition, and then take people out. I'm looking at this again then and going, okay, so they've introduced characters like Vivian fairly recently, where she's basically a Rainbow Six Siege character with a huge DPS and a adequate defense, as well as the ability to spot people. And so you're not, with that in mind, I can't help but feel that maybe this has been in the works for a little while, but at the same time, they've seemed to have put this huge map together. They seem to be suggesting that all of the current maps are areas within this larger map, which sounds cool to me. That I like. Because I've been hoping for more lore, which apparently they've been putting into the game as a thing to earn, which seems ridiculous to me. There's been no progression in the lore because they've been so cagey around it, and they seem to want you to work for the lore in a way that no other hero shooter does. And so you've got this really weird sticky mess that they've kind of thrown together to kind of drop on top of the game already that isn't strong enough to support it. I'll obviously keep an eye on this and take a look at it, but I feel like there are so many issues with the fact that we've got really greedy studios who are being openly greedy, even if they're not saying it outright. The fact that they're operating in a specific way demonstrates how greedy they are. They aren't paying attention to player feedback anymore. They aren't paying attention to the fact that their game is buggy, isn't providing the service or the quality of play that people are actually looking for. And so, for instance, in the Facebook comments under the video where I saw this first, the comments could kind of be pulled into three areas. You've got some people that went, "Oh yeah, this looks cool," which, to be fair, doesn't look terrible in concept, but judging from current execution and the way that they're running with things at the moment, it looks like it's probably going to be fucking miserable. And then you've got the people who were going, why don't you fix the main game first instead of fucking around with this stuff? Because you've already released essentially a MOBA version of your game already. Potentially removing staff from this game. I wouldn't imagine that they would do. I think that would probably be a separate team that was just using the same same kind of assets. But you've got people going, well, you released, what is it, Paladins Strike, I think. And now you're doing this as a game mode on top of the base game. When are we going to get repairs to the various bugs? When are we going to get skill balance? When are you going to kind of stop messing around and kind of fix the elements of when how people are matched with each other? Because at the moment it is making the game miserable. All of that kind of thing. And then you had the most sizable number of people in the comments going, it's still not going to make me reinstall the game. I uninstalled it because you were greedy bastards, and now you're continuing to be greedy bastards, jumping on a bandwagon. I'm not reinstalling again and allowing you to take up my hard drive and my time for a game mode that doesn't look bad, but only supports you trying to drain more money from us and screw us around more. And I'll admit, I'm one of those people that's sat in that camp. I didn't uninstall the game because I wanted to keep an eye on it just in case things changed, just in case things improved. But in regards to this kind of thing, I'm sat there going, should I just get rid of it? Should I just cut it loose? Because it seems like these guys and the way that they're running are now so removed from their player base and not willing to listen and not willing to take on board what's being said. They're still in beta, fine, but most of the betas the I've enjoyed, so I don't know, Warframe for instance, or some of the early betas for Guild, or some of the whole beta stage in fact for Guild Wars 2, or all manner of other games that I've jumped in on at the point of beta. It's Secret World, for instance. All of them have kind of gone through, and there's been this point where they've stopped and they've gone, we've got most of a game here. Now what we need to do is make sure that most of a game works before we start adding the rest of the game in. Same with Conan Exiles at the moment, where they're going, look, we've got to build on these systems. We're going to make sure that everything else is as polished as it can be and introduce systems over time as we can, so that then when we get to launch, it might mean that there are going to be updates after launch that continue to add more things. But when we get to launch, you guys are going to have the best possible experience from what we've been able to finish off so far. I respect that. That's a really good way of doing it. If a game needs to push back their release window, or if they need to go, do you know what, we're going to separate it out, as long as they don't then start charging for some of that content that they've talked about and said, this is what we want to work on for launch. Oh, we're not going to manage to get it in for launch, so there are going to be some updates afterwards. As long as those updates don't cost me anything and it's part of what I bought into to begin with, then I'm completely fine with that. Paladins being in beta, though, seems to be, to them, to Hi-Rez, a case where they can go, we're going to try and milk money out of people in as many different ways as we can. We're going to throw stuff in that's interesting, trial and error it, and that's fine. But then we're not going to listen to feedback. We're not going to pay attention to how people are interested, which areas people are interested in, or what other things people are wanting. And then, we already shifted the game from a more open arena style into a more closed arena style, probably due to the influence and success of Overwatch, to be fair. Not to say that they were copying, because I don't feel that they were, but if there is a demand for something and their game did not quite match that, then I can understand how they would lower the size of their arenas to try and compete. But now shifting across and dealing with this, I don't feel, lots of people have mentioned after seeing this in various comment threads and things that I've seen, oh, well, at least these guys got there before Blizzard did. I don't think Blizzard would bother. Blizzard so far seem to be looking towards developing a kind of game that has more to do with the individual characters and the places in the world they're going, and experiencing it either through big events or through just the PvP gameplay. If they came out with a campaign, if they came out with something more solid and more long-term than just the occasional anniversary events or the Halloween event or whatever else that provide other forms of gameplay, then I would be completely on board with that. There has been suggestion that they were looking to hire someone for the development of vehicles, which could suggest larger maps, could suggest something like this, to be fair, but at the same time isn't necessarily the case. That could be for a campaign, that could be for a new anniversary mode where we are taking tanks against Omnics in the Omnic Crisis, for instance, or something like that. It could be all manner of different things. But again, I feel like Overwatch has done so much within the sort of small space that it's already occupied that they don't then need to go and branch out into these things. This, to me, seems like Paladins was already having issues, and we know that they were, which is why I've stopped making videos about the game for the most part, sitting down and actually playing through the game for hours. But this seems to be, oh, well, this is popular at the moment. We're getting an awful lot of people who aren't playing Overwatch as much during the Christmas period, or aren't playing other things because they are being involved with their friends in these games, because you can potentially play with more friends at once. In a 50v50, if everyone's on, in Fortnite, if everyone's on the same team, then you can rumble in and just wipe clean a map with potentially 50 friends, and so I feel like they're going, oh well, that's happening, that's something that's interesting, that's something for us to pay attention to, and so if we can leverage that for more money, then that's what we're going to do. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, if you're upfront with your players, if you give us direct purchases, then fine, but you're not. You're hiding progression in loot boxes, and you've been greedy ever since the bloody VIP system came in. If not before that, you have started to be incredibly greedy with what you're doing, Hi-Rez. So it's troubling to me as someone who wanted to really enjoy the game and who for a long time did enjoy the game. In spite of the fact that it didn't really have much in the way of seasonal events. The seasonal stuff was basically just what they threw into the cash shop. And in regards to a whole load of other stuff, that I really enjoyed the game in spite of it not having a lot of stuff that otherwise I'd probably look for. Why? Because it had enough depth to keep me entertained, even though it was PvP only, and I'm not a big fan of PvP only. It was free to play, which allowed me to just drop in and drop out without feeling bad about the fact that I wasn't playing it enough to warrant the amount that I'd spent on it. And then on top of it, it was something that I could play with my friends quite casually and not care about. I could get in and I could do the parts that I wanted to do. I could get involved with other friends and talk to them about how we were playing. I would take a look at my Maldamba play, for instance, and a friend of mine would do the same, and then we would go, actually, yeah, we're working in basically the same way. Slight differences to our setup for the way that we feel when we play the character, but otherwise, that's the way that it works, and we seem to be having a fair amount of success with it. It became an interesting thing to have conversations revolve around. But now most of my friends have stopped playing it. I've stepped away from it for the most part. I'll take a look in every once in a while just to see if something's changed. But otherwise, that's it. And now coming out with this, I'll probably jump in. I'll probably have a go at this Battlegrounds mode and see what it's like. But at the same time, I'm not particularly hopeful for it being either all that successful or for it being all that good, beyond potentially them rolling out a whole load of stuff that goes with it in terms of, oh, we'll play this mode and either get these special rewards so to try and pull people in for longer, or play this mode and, oh, if you want to do well in this mode, here's some stuff in the cash shop, here's some stuff in the VIP store for you to tag in on. The VIP store, which again also doesn't work particularly well, and seems to be just there to siphon money from people. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts, not necessarily just on Paladins, because we've talked about Paladins and how Hi-Rez have been really kind of crappy with the way that they've managed things up until this point. But I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are more on this kind of battle royale kind of blow up. How this mode is becoming more and more popular. Because, we've had games that are kind of like this in various ways, that are kind of large battlefields of either free-for-all-esque kind of thing or kind of survival-ish games, or those that are actually kind of the old Battlefronts or things like Planetside, where you had, huge, vast armies composed of various different units that would tackle each other on a kind of campaign-esque kind of scale. We've had these kind of games to one extent or another for a while, and games are becoming more and more PvP, more and more service-based, and it doesn't. I'm someone that likes my single-player games, or my cooperative games. I don't always want to be in competition with people. There are 4 areas in Bartle's taxonomy, and 3 of which suggest that attacking each other isn't the only way that people enjoy games. In fact, there are an awful lot of people in the vast population of gamers worldwide who aren't big PvP gamers, but also they're not the ones that are as vocal and as loud as the PvP gamers, because the PvP gamers tend to be the ones that will attack aggressively all the time. So it's a case of, well, where's the balance here? We need to have some more stuff in these games to engage. You've got the achievers who may very well be okay with tackling a PvP situation, but they need to be able to achieve something. Be it a reward, be it a new thing. You've got the explorers that might want to explore the big map, but once they've explored it, what's left for them? They don't really care about tackling people. The build system is probably not going to be all that different from the way that has been throughout the entire game. I doubt that they're going to disconnect weapons from characters so that you'll see an Androxus with a Canessa rifle floating through the air, making headshots. And then you've got the kind of the socialites who will probably enjoy playing as long as they're playing with friends. But you're not going to be doing that in a free-for-all. So that kind of, there has to be a team mode in there somewhere. And if there isn't, then, or at least if there isn't when they first released this new game mode, then what the hell? But anyway, guys, as I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the blow-up of this. Are you particularly into your PvP games? And if you are, then I'd love to hear your perspective on it, because, there are a lot of my friends who I talked to about Paladins are quite PvP focused. They enjoy their games that involve just blowing other people away, and even they're sat there going, what? Why is this broken? Why hasn't this been fixed? Why have they removed this? Their PvE challenge mode even was a nice change of pace, and they said, oh, well, we feel we could do better, and then it disappeared into obscurity and hasn't returned. There's not been a single peep about it since. So for people like me that actually really enjoyed the kind of, oh, well, this is a puzzle, I need to find the right hero with the right build, with the right team, with the right way of tackling this so that we can get into it and succeed. That was a puzzle for me, and it was a puzzle with numerous different moving parts, and it was great. I really enjoyed getting into that. But then it got removed entirely and just disappeared. And it's like, well, now I'm just back to fighting people again, and the new maps seem to have slowed down. The new characters are just subpar. The balance has disappeared entirely. Old characters that I enjoyed playing have either been ruined or have been left neglected for so long that now the new characters just swamp them at every opportunity. It's this compounding kind of snowballing thing where the game is just getting worse and worse and worse due to, for the most part, neglect, which is a real shame. And it seems to be affecting people like me that wanted more from the game, and people that were just happy with the PvP side of it. So now that it's going for this large-scale PvP only environment, I'm interested to hear what you guys think as well, because again, even some of my friends who only ever play PvP, they're not into their story games, they're not into doing exploration or survival or anything else like that. Even they're sat there going, some of these battle royale games, getting sniped from nowhere halfway across the map when I didn't even realize the guy was there. What am I supposed to do about that? There's no agency. It's not a straight up fight, and so I'm disengaged by it. It's interesting to hear people's perspectives and thoughts. But anyway, guys, as I said, I'd love to hear everything and anything that you've got to say about this. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.